So I guess we should probably talk a little bit about what some of the main findings were from the work that you did, and having gone back now to the newsroom, how you feel they've applied.
Well, it's quite interesting because looking at community newsrooms and how some major news organizations are trying to involve their audience, I think the biggest finding was having a conversation with your audience and communicating with an established group rather than trying to build your own. But I really do think that it made newsrooms more relevant to what's going on out there, and I think that this is how somewhere like Winnipeg Free Press scores a win. It's geographically located outside of the downtown core, but its news cafe is right downtown, right in the heart of it. They hold events for people to come watch interviews and do that kind of thing.
It's interesting though, when you look at where you went and what you did, you look mostly at what I guess we used to call newspapers, but maybe we should call news organizations or something else now. Okay, how applicable do you think the findings are to other newsrooms and other news organizations? Or is it mostly print trying to cope with all the changes that it has to deal with?
I'm not sure I would call any of the newsrooms I visited just print only.
And that's one of the changes that's
yes,
going on,
I don't
right?
think that they exist anymore.
Right.
The solely print news operations. I think news organizations are now, and that's what I call them, news orgs or news organizations, are on many platforms. But what's interesting to me is that the most profitable, or the only profitable one of all the different newsrooms I visited was actually an online hub. It didn't even have a traditional roots. And it was operated by two guys in
that was Steinbeck.
Steinbeck,
Manitoba.
About that
going out,
yeah,
you
two
should
guys
do it.
in Manitoba's
Right.
third largest city of 13,000 people.
Yes.
And it was the only one to have a profit. And these guys would never say they were media barons, and they're not, but it's able to make money.
And they're also sort of not worrying about making 30 or 40%. They're happy to make some money and keep their business
but
going.
That was
but give jobs to people too, right?
Give jobs to people, and the what was interesting there was that it was completely community to start with. It was a tight-knit religious community. There's 27 churches there, so all of the advertisers on the websites were local businesses, and so everybody's trying to help everybody out. A really bad cliche I used. It's like building a barn, only they were building this online community hub.
One of the things that I thought was really great of having you with us was it's great for us to have contract instructors, to have people who are working full-time in the media and yet come in and teach a course and tell our students what's going on in newsrooms around the city. But it's great to have someone who's around for a longer period of time, who's not running in to teach your 3-hour class and then running back out to go back to work or to checking their BlackBerry to find out what's going on. Instead, sort of can sit around a little bit and talk about the things you've seen and the things that you see about us too, about what we do or don't do and how we should change what we're doing. So it's a great opportunity for a school to actually get a longer term benefit from a working journalist than you get from just having someone come in and teach a course. And the students really like that too, but still, it's a different rhythm, and it also gives us a chance to actually think a little bit more about some of the things we do or don't do, or maybe what we should do.
Well, and that's interesting because I could be from the experience of coming from a newsroom. It was certainly great to be around the school all day and talk to students about what life was going to be like when they made it into a newsroom. But it was a learning experience for me too. I got to learn about the news consumption of the next generation of
which is really different.
Which is really, it's a bit of a reconnaissance mission on my part to find out. They don't watch linear TV news anymore.
Most of them don't have.
They don't even have TVs,
That's
right?
They certainly don't have radios.
So you have to think about, well, how am I going to engage these students to take part in the Ottawa Citizen, which is a traditional news organization. So how can we engage them and get them reading and wanting to know more about what we do?
One of the things I thought really worked really well was when you organized the event at the end of the term, which was a social media night, where you brought in a bunch of journalists and then also some politicians. And we had for a university, we had a really good crowd. What was it, about 120 people or something like that?
Yeah, it was about 120.
Canadian Journalism Foundation was involved too, but it actually was a great event for everybody, and everyone stayed around afterwards, talked for a long time. Our politicians, Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, Mark Garneau, and Megan Leslie were all really good. The reporters were great, and we could have done a night with either one, when to cram both of them into one night actually gave some really interesting comparisons of how the two sides approached, and that the journalists were first, and they spent their time listening to the politicians on their panel too.
Absolutely,
so
and to
I
have
think they learned something as well as the students who came.
to have a group of journalists put down their Blackberries and actually listen to the politicians for once was kind of interesting
Big surprise.
too.
Yeah.
To see that. But I think you're right. I mean, there was to arrange that night was great for the students too. I saw a lot of students able to talk to seasoned Hill reporters,
Right.
and they don't always have access to the Katie O'Malley's, the Glenn McGregors, and others. And it's a great chance for them to say, what's it like working on the Hill? And for me, also being a graduate of Carleton, the big bonus of the school is that it's located here in the nation's capital. Sure. Why not, key into what our huge industry is in this town?
And there were some really interesting insights that came out of that too. I remember Glenn McGregor talking about, well, I don't quote people who say things on Twitter and things like that, which I think some of the students helps the students think a little bit about what they should be doing and shouldn't be they be doing and how they should be going after their reporting. You've also, though, teach a course and have taught a course for us for a couple of years, multimedia reporting. How did that kind of compare with what you were doing in the research? Were you able to make take some of that and put it in the classroom, or are they kind of two separate things?
Some of the actual tools that I teach in multimedia, I was able to use them in my blog. Like I did some audio editing and can do sound slides and that kind of thing. But I definitely made me think about how we teach social media and how we teach interacting with the audience. And that's something I'm not sure we spoke about when I was a student was, all right, you used to get a letter to the editor from someone. Well, now it's not just reportage.
Interacting with the audience
it's a
is
discussion.
one way we tell you what we think is going on. And
Exactly.
If you don't like it, you can write a letter.
Yeah, this is important. This is what you need to know. Versus now it becomes you tell us what you feel is important.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example today, the Scotiabank Place gets renamed to Canadian Tire Centre.
Right.
What's more important, more
Everybody
interesting
has an
to me
opinion.
is what everybody thinks of it,
Yeah.
not just the news.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you? I guess what we were really pleased with the way when you came to us and said you wanted to apply, and I wrote a letter to say we support it. Didn't have much of an idea of how it was going to turn out. We were really glad to have somebody there, but I think we were very pleased with how the opportunity it gave us and the time that you spent going into other people's classes as well, because I know you were in a couple of my classes, you were in a couple other places, to seeing what we were doing in different places, and I hope some of that got into your report. You've still got one more thing to do for us, because you've got to come back in September and talk to our incoming students and everyone else about some of the findings. Have you figured out what you're going to say there yet?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually gave last week a talk to the Citizen. That was part of the fellowship, was to kind of report what I learned, and there were two purposes for that. One was that they know what I was doing for 4 months beyond just disappearing, but the other was to give them a sense of what my research findings were. And a lot of what I found with these community newsrooms is that it was much a marketing endeavor as it was an editorial one, and I think that helped the reporters in the room understand why you might have a community newsroom, why you might set this up. And the reason is to kind of, as a marketing exercise, you're ingratiating yourself with the audience. When you're involving them, they're becoming...
It changes the job of reporters, because reporters can't be people who are grumpy and sit at their desk and
Well,
don't want to deal with anybody else,
I
write
don't
their
know
story
where
or whatever.
But our reporters are all very, very cheery. So
Okay.
no, you're right though,
Yeah.
and it means that every opinion someone voices to you is worth listening to, rather than just, oh, that's just a silly person on the phone. Well, actually, maybe they have something.
It also
of
creates the
value.
pressure, though, what ones you should respond to and what ones you shouldn't respond to, which is a whole level of some of the things we're trying to teach our students in how you engage in social media, engage with audiences, but you have to be a little bit careful about what you do too, because you don't want to, you're a journalist and you don't want to give away everything you know necessarily to your audience, except in your stories.
Yeah, I guess also though, we teach journalism students that with sources, right? Vetting your sources. So how is vetting the comments and interactions from your audience any different from that? It's the same kind of thing as evaluating your sources, right? Evaluating the...
At the end of it all, is there anything you wish you'd done that you didn't do? That we should have structured it a little bit
To be
different?
honest, I wish I had more time, because I think I first came to you with this proposal, and you were like, "This is great. This is a PhD thesis. This is
Right.
You have 4 months. Let's
Still
make
can
it." True, but you have 4 months. Let's make it achievable. I guess things I wish I had done. Maybe if we'd done that social media night a little earlier in the term, because it really did get a lot of students out. It was a really great way of involving students with reporters and politicians, and it would have been nicer to have it a little closer to the beginning of term.
Yeah, because at the end of the term, everybody's really busy.
They're starting to
even
think
then,
of
we
it.
got a great turnout.
We got a great turnout, but it would have been a great introduction as to what I was doing there too.
Right.
I did sit in a lot of communications classes, and I loved being a student again. I wish I'd sat in more. I stayed in communications and journalism. It might have been fun to go hang out in other areas that are a little less comfort zone, math, science.
We were thrilled. We were thrilled to be the first school that received a Michener-Deacon Fellow. We were even happier that it was you, and we thought it all turned out fabulously well.
Terrific! It was a lot of fun being the first one too, because you kind of get to set the pace, and I hope I set the bar pretty high.
Well, I think you did.
For those who follow, because it was an excellent opportunity, and I can't imagine. Those 4 months changed my life.
Well, good.
Great.
Great, and thank you for doing it. And thanks to the fellowship too.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate
What a great
having the
opportunity.
for a student.